would call. Greyfriars Bobby, the day is bright and broad. Greyfriars Bobby, your master's gang will walk. Come with we, Bobby, will roam the brake through the heather and far away. Greyfriars Bobby, please come out and play. His master slept in the kirkyard. He loved his master true. So Bobby slept in the kirkyard. No other place would do. The good Lord Mayor made this decree that gave him great renown. A dog as loyal as Bobby, he would have the key to the town. Greyfriars Bobby, the day is ripped and broad. Greyfriars Bobby, your master's gang will walk. Come with we, Bobby, will roam the brake through the heather and far away. Greyfriars Bobby, please come out and play. Please come out and play. Please come out and play.
That's me they're singing about. I'm a Skye Terrier, and my name is Bobby, and I have the key to the city of Edinburgh. But wait, that's the story I want to tell you. I was born on Colbray Farm, about 20 miles from Edinburgh, and my best friend was an old shepherd named Jock. He was kind to the sheep he cared for, and kind to me, and I loved him, for he was truly my master. Every market day, Jock and the farmer used to go to Edinburgh and take me with them. And every day at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, when the time gun would go off, Jock and I would go to Mr. Trail's place for a meal. But one day, the farmer and old Jock headed for Edinburgh and left me behind. I couldn't understand it at all. So the first chance I got, I jumped through the window of the farmhouse and set off for Edinburgh to find Jock. My legs are quite short, and the way to Edinburgh is long and stony. It took me the whole morning to get there, and my paws were worn out, and I was hot and tired and very hungry. And when the 1 o'clock gun sounded, I headed for Mr. Trail's place to try and find Jock.
Why, Bobby, what's wrong? You're usually bang on time with the 1 o'clock gun, and you're all muddy and panting, laddie. Where's old Jock? Old Jock's no here, Bobby. Go find him.
My master wasn't at Mr. Trail's, and that seemed very strange to me. I knew Edinburgh well and began looking for him, up one street and down the other, all over the marketplace and into the alleys and byways. As it got dark, it began to rain. I could hardly see, but I kept looking for Jock. In the middle of the night, I found him. He was sleeping, and I lay down by his side. The next morning, when I woke up, my master was still sleeping, but there were a lot of other people there. One was a policeman in a black uniform with a tall black hat and a very black look on his face. When he saw me, he said,
"That's the old man's dog, and without a collar, too. It's my duty to take him to the police station. If he has no collar, he has no license."
I'd heard enough. Although I hated to leave my master still sleeping, I skedaddled right through the policeman's legs and out into the street. The next thing I knew, they were carrying my master in a solemn procession through the streets to Greyfriars Kirkyard, a very important place, with a fancy wrought iron fence around it. Naturally, I went along with Jock, and when they laid him to rest in the ground, I lay down beside him. But soon Mr. James Brown, the caretaker of Greyfriars, discovered me and said,
"Who let a dog in here? Gang away out of here. Gang away home. A kirkyard's no place for a dog. Shoof now, and keep out of me kirkyard. You hear me?"
Mr. Brown didn't throw me out very hard, and before he could get the iron gate closed, I'd sneaked back in, and he didn't even see me. As he went into his house, I settled down for the night, right beside old Jock, my master.
If a buddy meet a buddy coming through the rye, if a buddy kiss a buddy, need a buddy cry. Every lassie has her laddie, none they say have I, yet all the lads they smile. coming through the rye. If a buddy meet a buddy coming frae the town, if a buddy greet a buddy, need a buddy frown. Every lassie has her laddie, none they say have I. Yet all the lads they smile on me when coming through the rye.
The next morning, the children singing woke me up. The sun was shining brightly, and a whole gang of kids were singing and playing together in the alley right outside of the kirkyard. All of a sudden, they spotted me.
Haley! Haley!
What is it?
There's the wee dog Mr. Trail's looking for. Let's try to catch him, and Mr. Trail say he'd give us a penny.
Hush! There's Mr. Brown coming into the kirkyard. He'll no be easy to catch with Mr. Brown about.
I'll go to the gate and keep Mr. Brown talking, while you kids slip over the fence and catch the wee dog.
All right, Tammy. Come on, kids. Hurry!
Just then, I saw a big brown rat skulking along the wall of the kirkyard. I was after him in an instant, forgetting all about the kids and Mr. Brown.
What are you doing here? What's going on here? Aye, so you're back. And how did you get back? And don't be looking so pleased with yourself. You're breaking the law of trespass. And you kids do not belong in here either. Clear out now.
Look, husband, this brave wee dog has killed a great big rat.
Aye, I'm no saying he is not a bonny fighter, but he's still breaking the law, and there's only one thing to do with him.
Aye, there's only one thing to do with him, and we'll do it now. Give him a good wash. He's all muddy and dirty. A bath was the last thing I wanted, but Mrs. Brown caught me up, and before I knew it, she'd plunged me into a tub, and Mr. Brown was scrubbing me with soap. And when he's dry, Jamie Brown, he'll be needing his breakfast. He looks very thin.
Breakfast new, is it? And a bit of liver and such like, no doubt. And a serving maid to wait on him.
Ah, hold your grumbling, man. I'll get him some scraps.
Still, will you? Do you have to splash me with your tail? Trespasser. Keep still. No dogs permitted is the rule. And you needn't try to beguile me to forget it, because you won't. You're going out.
After a bite to eat, Mr. Brown took me out to the gates of the kirkyard and pointed out the sign to me. Naturally, I couldn't read it, but he read it to me.
Greyfriars Kirkyard. No dogs permitted. There, in black and white. Rat killing or no, out you stay. Away with you.
The kids were waiting for me outside the kirkyard, but so was a long black shadow McLean, the policeman. He made a grab for me, and I went through his legs again and almost upset him. But in getting away from the policeman, I ran right into Ailey's arms, and she caught me.
Give me that wee dog, girl.
But, sir, Mr. Trail wants to see him.
Oh, so Mr. Trail is running a restaurant for dogs, is he?
Why do you want the dog, Mr. McLean?
Why? Is he your dog? Are you keeping a dog in the kirkyard, Mr. Brown?
He's no my dog. But why would you want to catch him?
He wears no collar, and with no collar perhaps he has no license, and that's against the law.
And what does a license cost?
7 shillings.
And what happens if he's got no license?
The law says he must be put away.
Oh, no!
Oh, they can't do it.
Let's take the wee dog to Mr. Trail right away.
I'll be seeing Mr. Trail myself.
So all the kids, with Ailey holding me firm under her arm, raced through the streets of Edinburgh to Mr. Trail's restaurant.
Come in. It is not locked.
We brought you a wee dog, Mr. Trail.
Aye, we got him.
But where do you find him?
He was in Greyfriars Kirkyard. He sleeps on his master's grave.
Old Jock dead. What a loyal and brave wee thing you are, Bobby. Here, you must be hungry. We'll have a bowl of chuck and soup for you.
He's given the wee dog chuckin' to eat. Real chuckin' to a wee dog.
Haley, lock the street doors. I lock 'em. I'm no open for customers yet. I was just going to have my own dinner first, and I cannot eat by myself. So we'll have a picnic and all have chuck and soup.
What's a picnic?
Picnics are for outdoors in the summertime.
Not always, Tommy. It's like I said. You can have a picnic at any time at all when you have a whole lot to eat and you share it. Come on now, sit yourselves down and mind your manners.
Chuckin'. I've never eaten it.
Tommy, say grace.
For what we about to see our Lord make us truly thankful, amen.
I didn't hear what you said.
I was not talking to you.
Hey, children now. Here, Bobby, you sit here. After all, this picnic is in your honor.
Tammy, this is hard to believe. It's like the tales you make up in your head.
Does he make up tales?
Aye, and he can read, too.
Can he now?
And he makes up tales all the time, like how he saves the queen from drowning. And we all get invited to a great big banquet at her castle at Balmore, and then...
Stop it, Ailey. Just a foolishness of mine, Mr. Trail.
Aye, and about him having grown 2 new legs to run about on, instead of his crippled ones.
Aye, Tommy, we'll have to take you to the infirmary. I have a good many friends there, doctors that eat here. If they cannot give you new legs, you can get a pair of crutches that are the next best thing, and no like these poor sticks you have now.
As it was evening, the kids soon headed for their homes, but with their tummies really full for probably the first time in their lives, as they were all very poor. I stayed with Mr. Trail for a while longer, but as it got dark, I wanted to head for the kirkyard to sleep with my master, so I barked and scratched at the door.
All right, but you're a pest of a dog. Now I'll have to come with you to the kirkyard. You'll no get in there by yourself. The gates are locked now. Oh, come along.
So Mr. Trail took me along to the kirkyard and was very surprised to see Mr. Brown waiting for me at the gate.
I thought there was a strict regulation against dogs in the kirkyard.
Aye, there is. And the wee dog'll sleep in my house this night, if that concerns you.
He will not sleep in any house.
No in yours, maybe. But my wife Jeanie has taken a fancy to him, and he to us.
Oh!
We found him filthy and dirty with mud, and all tired out this morning. We washed him and he's grateful.
And I feed him.
Aye, and bring him to sneak back inside the kirkyard in the cold and against the law. He's sleeping in my house this night and every night, and you needn't bother feeding him any more, Mr. Trail. The wee dog has turned to us, so good night to you.
I liked Mr. Brown, and I liked Mr. Trail, and I was sorry they weren't friends. But I wanted to sleep in the kirkyard with Jock, my master, and that's what I did. Mr. Brown tried to get me to come in by his fire, but I knew my place was beside Jock in the kirkyard. The next morning, bright and early, the kids and I set out for Mr. Trail's. He had evidently been doing some thinking about Tammy and Ailey, and all the poor kids that lived around Greyfriars. For he said to Tammy first thing, that since his legs would never be any good, he'd have to learn to make a living with his head, and that he was going to enroll Tammy in aero school, the best in Edinburgh, and pay his fees for him. As for Ailey, he gave her a job waiting on tables in his restaurant. So we were all around the place, when suddenly the door was darkened by a long, grim form, and Mr. McLean, the policeman, confronted us.
Good day to you, Davy, and how are you?
So ye have a dog here now, John. I didn't know.
Well, no doubt there's still a few things you do not know, Davy. The wee dog is a customer of mine.
I didn't come here for jokes. I came here in the line of my duty. Are you Mr. John Trail?
What ails you, man? You know my name as well as you know your own.
It's a formality of the law to make ye admit your identity. Here's a bit of paper for ye. You're summoned to appear before the magistrate of the borough court tomorrow to answer the charge of owning or harbouring one dog, of which ye haven't paid the licence tax of 7 shillings.
Who says I own or harbour a dog?
I can use my own eyes.
Can you use your head?
I can, and I've been watching that wee dog for a long time and trying to catch him too, because I thought he had no licence. Mr. Brown says...
Mr. Brown! I might have known that old fool at the kirkyard was behind all this. I'll see about this right away so you can take yourself off.
You mean you'll pay?
No!
Then I'll have to take the dog with me, and you'll present yourself to the court tomorrow.
Mr. Trail, what does it mean? Is it not a joke?
Oh, no joke at all. The municipal court of Edinburgh is very important. The Lord Provost himself sits on the bench there when it is his turn to do so. 'Tis a serious matter.
But what about Bobby?
Oh, he'll be all right tonight. But if someone doesn't pay his license tomorrow, they'll have to put him away. His license must be paid by his true owner, and I'm not that, nor is Mr. James Brown.
Ailey ran out of the place crying. Mr. Trail put on his hat and went out, while Mr. McLean, with me held tightly under his arm, headed for jail. Struggle as I might, I couldn't get away, and so I spent a miserable night away from my master, and wondering what the next day would bring. The next morning, Mr. McLean took me to the municipal court, and I was more scared than I'd ever been in my life. There, sitting up on the high bench, was the Lord Provost of Edinburgh. He was a big man with a stern look on his face. Mr. Trail and Mr. Brown were sitting on the benches down below. Mr. Trail suddenly stood up and spoke.
There's many would say this is no much of a case for the Lord Provost to bother his head about, your lordship.
I must be the judge of that, Mr. Trail. Constable McLean has the prisoner in custody, I see. Now, Mr. Trail, the points at issue are very simple. Do you give food and shelter to this dog, and do you own it? Let us take the first point first. A responsible officer of the law has seen you feed the animal on your premises.
If you mean Davy McLean, I have often fed that responsible officer too, your lordship. But I have no license for him.
Mr. Trail...
Aye, your lordship. I've always fed the wee dog, and I'm no denying it.
Yet you say you don't own the dog.
Ugh, I've courted the wee terrier for a long, long time, because I have nobody of my own. But he'll have none of me, except his friendly and polite. He just grieves the old man Jacques that's buried in Greyfriars kirkyard.
But the law says he must have an owner.
And I cannot claim to be that, your lordship, because it isn't true. But I cannot believe the Lord would make a man abandon his principles and lie or take the life of a wee dog just for a matter of a few shillings on a piece of paper.
The law deals with facts, not emotions, Mr. Trail. The dog is ownerless and unlicensed.
I'm the dog's owner.
James Brown, you're telling a lie.
Your name?
James Brown, your lordship. And
You claim ownership of the dog?
I do, your lordship. And I've come to pay the license for him.
James Brown is no the owner of the dog.
If I pay for him, I am.
You have no legal right to Bobby any more than I.
Mr. Brown, the dog sleeps under your roof?
Well, no at night, your lordship. No, I cannot say that. He sleeps in the kirkyard.
I feel I must point out to both of you that the dog sleeps under neither's roof. So belongs no more to one than to the other.
I was summoned to license him and be his owner, and I will.
But I asked first.
Just then there was a terrible commotion at the door of the courtroom, and it burst open, and in came running Ailey and all the kids, with Tammy on his crutches trying to keep up. Bobby! Oh, Tammy, look! He's here! He's not dead! Mr. Trail, we're in time.
Silence! Close the door.
Mr. Trail, I had the money for the license in my hat. It's 7 shillings, if you want to count.
But where did you bairns get of this? And how did you?
Everybody about the kirkyard gave it to pay the police no to make Bobby dead.
Aye, near every bairn we asked.
I gave you a penny. I gave 2 farthings, Mr. Trail.
Everybody gives something.
Now, have you no respect for where you are? In the great bird court? No.
Mr. Trail, hand the dog up here. Now answer me this, any of you. Do you know what it is to be given the freedom of the city?
'Tis when the Queen comes, mister, and you give her the keys to the bird gates.
Right, laddie. We give the keys to visitors who are grand or wise or just useful out of the ordinary.
Mr. Gladstone, the Prime Minister, and Miss Florence Nightingale.
Yes, to the brave and faithful. And now here's a wee dog that's a faithful out of the ordinary for a dead man he loved. He's gone hungry and been cold. He has never forgotten him, nor left his side at night.
And do the police not have to take him?
If he's made free of the city, he can wander where he likes. I have here a little collar for him. It reads, Greyfriars Bobby, from the Lord Provost, 1867, licensed.
Haley, there's a Lord Provost himself, and I call him Master.
If dozens of children who know him will fetch 7 shillings in their farthings and pennies for him, they buy the right for the dog to live in the care of them all, in the kirkyard of Greyfriars. But he must have this collar, so all the police will know him and never take him up for a masterless dog. He belongs to all of you, and all of you are responsible for him now.
The good Lord Mayor made this decree that gave him great renown. A dog as loyal as Bobby, he would have the key to the town. Greyfriars Bobby, the day is ripped and raw. Greyfriars Bobby, your master's getting a walk. Come with we, Bobby, will roam the brake through the heather and far away. Greyfriars Bobby, please come out and play. Please come out and play. Please come out and play.
Having the freedom of Edinburgh was wonderful for me. I went everywhere there was to go and saw everything there was to see. I attended every official function and led every parade. But every night I would head for Greyfriars Kirkyard to sleep beside my master.
Good night, Bobby.
Good night to you, Bobby. Mr. Trail, will you now come in?
What for, Mr. Brown?
Och, come in, come to my house and have tea with me and Jeanie.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I will.
I was happy to see Master Trail and Mr. Brown friends at last. I settled down in the kirkyard for a good night's sleep. And as the lights went out in the nearby houses, I heard Tammy and Ailey and the children singing.
Should old acquaintance be